A lot of things out of your control in sports. You may have a team that's expected to win the championship, and they tank, and they're one of the worst teams in the league. You have no control over that. You're still accountable for the numbers and the metrics, and how are you still gonna put yourself in a spot to meet those growth targets with things that are out of your control. And then I mentioned earlier just being analytical as well. It can't just be all sales. You have to have strategy behind that too, and a purpose, and working with your partners on the strategy side of the business to do that. Where I've seen vice presidents struggle, and where it probably leads to some of that high turnover, I'll hit on a few of those. Too short-term focused. That's one of them. There's a lot of times where you have to make concessions in the short term to hopefully keep you afloat. That hopefully doesn't hurt you too much in the long run. But if you get too focused on that and not thinking what the implications are down the road, that may get you by for now. But at some point, you got to face the music. And 2, 3 years from now, that decision that you made may come to light, and you got to be prepared for that. So if you're going to make concessions in the short term, understand how that impacts the long term, and like what's your plan then should that end up playing out, and clearly communicating that, making sure there's alignment. They're like, hey, this is our long term vision. We're going to sacrifice that here in the short term to make sure that we do this. Are we all on board with that? And are we all good with the implications that can come from that? But just having that dialogue, that communication, and alignment as you're making decisions like that. Um, Kind of goes in the same end. Failure to innovate. So stuck on like, here's my process, here's my plan. And I talked earlier about having courage behind your beliefs. So I'm not trying to contradict myself there, but something that may have worked for you at a previous role in a different market maybe isn't going to be the same for you in a new market. The dynamics are different, the growth stages are different, not thinking of new ways that you can grow, and innovation comes in a lot of different forms, but always thinking on ways like, what's the next version of ourselves? How can we continue to grow and get 1% better every day? How do we, rebrand ourselves in a way that, continues to meet the current buyer dynamics, because they're always changing, but then also being innovative. Um, there's micromanagers out there. We all have had success in our career if we get to the vice president role, and we all think we could probably do the role of the people underneath us better than they can. It takes a certain skill to be humble and understand that there's people better than you, and doing it better than you did it. So not micromanaging. You got to stay close, so you don't want to be too loose and not on top of things, but at the same time, allowing people to evolve and develop and grow underneath you is going to be huge. So making sure that you're not micromanaging. Um, Lack of accountability. I touched on it earlier. So you have to take complete ownership. You can't blame, outside factors. You can't blame the economy. You can't blame the team didn't play well. Like those are all things that we should be aware of, and hopefully you're in a situation where you can have open dialogue about that, and are on the same page, and you're like, hey, we didn't meet the expectation, but let's build a plan so that we get back on track 12 months from now, 18 months from now, whatever that is, should there be situations that come up that are out of your control. So that's a big one. And that kind of goes with the next one, with their inability to self-assess. So not assessing where your weaknesses are and being open to changing those, or knowing what your weaknesses are and bringing people around you that can offset that. So if you're strong in one area, having a number two that's strong in a different area that maybe you struggle in, or seeking help and support above you, and having the humility to say that I don't have it all figured out. How can you help and support me? But not being able to self-assess where your weaknesses are and where your growth opportunities lie is a big challenge for people, and that gets people down a bad path and eventually not in the role anymore. And the last one is burnout. I always wondered, you see all these people in these roles, specifically in sports, and eventually they're just out of sports. Like, what happened? And some of it is just, life changes. You start a family, you get married, like there's other priorities than, just work, 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 work. But in sports, specifically in baseball, there's 80 plus games, there's external events. So you're at the ballpark or the stadium or your venue more than you are with your family. And that could lead to burnout. So finding ways to make sure that you're not overworking yourself, you're not overexerting yourself. You're obviously, putting in a ton of work and a lot of hours, because that's expected. And that's probably what's going to lead to success. But being able to find that balance between that and your personal life, Some call it a work-life blend, however you want to look at it. Um, but making sure you don't burn yourself out and stress yourself out with the expectations and the continuous pressure. If you look at it like that, finding ways and outlets to healthy outlets to give yourself some break and some and focusing on your mental health so that you can withstand the longevity in a role like that. So that's where I've seen some of the best do well. That's where I've seen people struggle. And from where I sit today and where I see the future of the industry going and just people that I've had conversations with, this is what I think the future looks like. You need to consider if you're in a vice president ticket sales role, if you're looking to get into it, some things that you should keep in mind. It kind of goes back to what the first one kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier, like not being able to innovate, but being open to a new playbook. There are a number of C-level executives I spoke to over the past few years about ticket sales specifically and the way that we have come up and the playbooks that we had and the process that we have that we're all so loyal to, right? And a number of them maybe come from out of sports or maybe you don't have a background in ticket sales. And I'm not saying necessarily need to blow up the playbook, but want to make sure that we're able to innovate with the changing times and buying behaviors and dynamics and not so stuck on this is our process. We learned it back in the early 2000s or the mid 2000s, and this is the model that works in sports. Like it's going to change. It's going to be different for every market. So you may have been with one team for 10, 12 years in your career, and this is the way you did it. If you're going to go out and branch off somewhere else, or even if you stay with that team, you have to be open to a new process and a new way of doing things and a new way of thinking. I mentioned the relationship with marketing, but we need to be more marketers too. We can't just be solely focused on just being sellers. We need to understand what's going on the marketing side, especially like on the B2C side, and I see this happening more on B2B. It's being a lot more transactional in the process. So that means leveraging our marketing tools, our assets, our strategy to either drive sales so people can self-serve or provide support and coverage for your sales team so that and you're involved in that process of whether it's content, whether it's creative assets, aligned with your marketing team and understanding how they're going about it and knowing that strategy. And also for yourself, building your own personal brand. The more that you're out there, specifically in the business community, is only going to give more coverage and support to your sales team and also allow you to connect, whether it's through LinkedIn or being involved with chambers or different associations and getting out there and meeting with people, like building your own personal brand. That's a big part of it. You can't just be locked into your team and your venue. You got to get out in the community. More active in the sales process. That kind of goes with the last piece. I was challenged with being more actively as a seller. I enjoyed it because for me, it allowed me to hear what my staff was hearing so I could best prepare them for for success. And it's helped me even more as I coach salespeople now. Like, here are things that I was doing in a role, an executive role, and even now I'm selling on a continual basis as a consultant. But just being more active in the sales process, whether that's you taking it from start to finish, or maybe out there prospecting and bringing leads and tying people into it. Some have an actual number on their head that they need to accomplish. Others, it's getting the department to its number. So the more that you're actively involved in the sales process is only going to help you get to your total number that much quicker. Um, Proficient in new technology. So there's so much out there. There's always this new vendor. You can't keep up. There's all these tools, and I don't think you need to jump at the newest, shiniest thing every single time. But I do think it's important that we're always looking ahead at how can, what are our problems and how are there solutions that could help us solve that may be more cost efficient or allow us to work more effectively and efficiently as a team. And you want to be the one who's driving that and taking ownership of it, not, your leaders saying, hey, you need to look at this. Like, you want to be on top of those things, one from just the people above know that you have a good handle on what's going on, but also you're always thinking about how do you get better, how can you be more efficient with some of the technology that's out there So always thinking and looking ahead of what's out there and what's going to make the most sense. A number of teams I talk to are either looking for new revenue streams, or so maybe through events or other ways that they can drive additional services on top of their tickets, or building out new premium areas because that's higher revenue gains that they're getting. So having a forward thinking approach to that, but then also having your team ready with the resources to go out and sell that. Because if you're going to build a new inventory or build a new space or create a new product, you want to make sure that you're set up for success. So making sure the demand's there in the market, but also your sales team's prepared and built to take on, a more premium sales role. That's one thing that I've noticed working with teams on more the B2B side. I don't think it's necessarily B2B equates to premium, but those are the people that a lot of people target to sell premium. So making sure that you're, either working with a consultant or internally you have the resources to train your team up from inside sales all the way up to your most senior people to be able to articulate and sell premium, but also get out in the business community. I touched on this earlier, being more customer focused. I think one of the flaws I've seen throughout ticket sales is many VPs of ticket sales came up in service, came up through sales. And eventually you branch over, maybe you have a strong number two on the service side. But I posted about this earlier this week. It might be more efficient to grow your revenue through current accounts and deliver an amazing experience and get more revenue from renewing at a higher rate and retaining at a higher rate and growing and expanding those accounts than being solely focused on new sales. That is a grind. That's what I did pretty much my entire career, and there needs to be a motion and an opportunity there. But we also need to pay attention and love to the customer service, customer success, whatever you want to call that. It's different at every team. Make sure that they're compensated well. Make sure that you're setting them up for success. You have a strong function there that's servicing your account so that they can retain and tell the story for you. CRM processes. Many times we kind of leave that to the CRM people, or we look at CRM as just a place where we keep our leads and make sure people don't steal our leads. But CRM is the most important tool in your tech stack. It should be the central point where all the data lives across marketing, across business analytics. Like everything should drive to your CRM system, data from your ticketing system, because that's where all the data lives. So that when the finance team is looking at, all right, how are we performing on the sales side, they could easily look and see, and there's one hub for where everything lives. So understanding more the CRM process, getting more involved with it, making sure that you're enforcing the guidelines that are being set on how you all run an efficient CRM, so all the data is there. That's a big one. And I've touched on this a few times, but the last one I'll say is having that financial acumen and understanding the finance side of the business. Organizations are looking ways to be more profitable and efficient, and teams are starting to run a little more lean on the sales side. So what that means for you is understanding where are the profitable expenses and investments that we have, what's maybe not driving as many returns that either we cut or reallocate those resources so that it's more efficient for the business. But if you don't have any awareness or visibility of that, you're just going to keep running your play. And on the background or on the other side, they're looking like this guy's running or this gal's running an inefficient sales team. They have no clue. So in the future, understanding that, whether it's listening to podcasts about, finance and FP&A and financial statements and everything like that, that's just a good skill for you to have and understand how the business works and where you fit into the overall financials and economics of the business. So this is a long one. I'll probably break it into two parts, but appreciate as always you tuning in. I think for me, it was a great experience being in that role as a vice president of ticket sales. So now in this consulting function that I'm in, I get to work closely with that and share some of my insights and understand at that level, what people challenges they're going through, what responsibilities they have, but then also mentoring some that maybe you're into, like, hey, here are some things to look out for. Here are some things that, down the road may come up. Here's how I think you can support, or if I was in your shoes, or when I was in your situation, here's what I did right, wrong, or, in between. So again, always appreciate you guys tuning in. Would love to get feedback. if you have any. But definitely encourage you all if that's a role that you're aspiring to get to as a vice president. Feel free to reach out. I'm here to share any insights or help you prep if you're going into an interview or looking to build out a plan that one day I want to run a sales team, what that looks like and what to be aware of. So everyone have a great day. Thanks.